Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Public Accountability Meeting for Fire. I'm Jenny Newbury. I'm Head of Commissioning and Partnership Services for the OPFCC. I will be chairing this afternoon's session on behalf of Zoe Metcalfe, who is ill this afternoon and unavailable to attend. I'll move us through the agenda quite rapidly this afternoon, so I'll go straight into attendance and apologies. So in terms of apologies, I know we've got Matt Walker, Deputy Chief Fire Officer, apologies. We've also got apologies from Simon Dennis as Chief Executive Officer of the OPFCC. Simon is attending a national APCC conference on building community confidence, which is obviously a key priority area for Zoe, and the areas they're covering today, Black communities, women and girls, and trans and non-binary communities, was really important that we were represented there. So it's just to make sure that the public are aware that's why Simon as Chief Exec isn't available this afternoon. So that covers agenda item 1. Move us on to agenda item 2, so minutes of previous meeting and actions. So the minutes of these meetings, as regular viewers will know, are available on the OPFCC website to go back to and refer to, and there were no specific actions from the last meeting to pull forward into this one. So that takes care of agenda item 2. In terms of agenda item 3, that is questions from the public, and at this time we've had no questions from the public to date. So we'll move straight into what was agenda item 4, which is the thematic presentation and questions from NYFRS. Just to let the audience know that we had an agenda item advertised in relation to a day in the life. We've actually looked to amend that agenda item. We're going to have a look at the previous agenda item from last month, which was around the risk and resource model consultation, so that we can provide a distinct overview of the things in relation to that consultation with the OPFCC. So Dave Winspear, Area Manager and Director for Transformation, is going to take us through a brief overview of the presentation that regular viewers will have heard last month. And then Tom Thorpe, as Interim Assistant Chief Executive and Deputy Monitoring Officer for the OPFCC, will take us through a little bit of information about how the consultation is working to date and some of the things that the public have been talking to us about. So that will be our revised agenda item 4. So we'll move straight into that. And if I can hand over to Dave, please. Are you happy to start your presentation, please, Dave?
I am, yes.
Thank you.
Could someone just give me a quick heads up when it's on your screen?
It's on.
Lovely. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And as you've just introduced, Jenny, this is, again, actually a summary of what we went through last month. As people may well be aware, and if people are joining for the first time, we are currently in the process of consulting with the public, stakeholders, partners and staff on something called the risk and resource model. The risk and resource model is something that we have to put in place on a regular basis. It basically sets out how we as a fire and rescue service will operate and what we want to achieve. So I'm going to go through a series of slides which summarise quite a lengthy process that the Fire and Rescue Service have undertaken to lead to the point where we're now in the consultation programme. I will go through a little bit of the background of what's been done to allow us to have the really deep understanding about risk in our county, and also how we led the way to setting out what our strategic intent is, so what the Fire and Rescue Service are wanting to achieve over the next few years under this risk and resource model. I'll then go through 4 options which are out currently for public consultation. I will explain them in some detail, but after I finish speaking, I will be handing over to Tom, who will take you through a little bit more information about the way that the public can involve themselves in the consultation process. I will at this point, though, add that the information that I'm going to talk about is freely available on your website. And if people want to have more insight into what we're talking about, there is a lot of literature available for them to view, read, digest. But as always, if people want to ask further questions, they can come back to us as a fire service or yourself as the Office of the Police and Fire Crime Commissioner. So basically, what's the risk and resource model? Well, in basic terms, it's about how we understand risk in our county, our service area. So that's the whole of North Yorkshire County Council and the City of York. And when we talk about risk, because of the things that we're statutorily expected to understand risk against, which is predominantly road, water and fire, we've used that directive from the government to form our risk profile. We did look at a range of other things, but in effect, that's what we've kind of focused on. That's what we've used to drive our proposals, which are currently out for consultation on. The reason that we've chosen to call it a risk and resource model is exactly that point. We now have a much more complete and more detailed understanding of risk in our service area. And this is our approach now about how we use the available resources that we've got and or future resources to deliver our full range of services to the public. And when I talk about our full range of services, it's important to understand that that includes what's called prevention. So how we get in there early to stop things becoming a problem or address risk and hazard that avoids people getting into trouble and difficulty. It's around protection, which is basically our fire safety. So we, as a statutory regulator for fire safety legislation, work with the business community to make sure that the public places that people visit, work in and use for leisure are safe. It's also about our response, and it's about how we work with our communities to improve their own resilience, and we maintain our own resilience as well. And in summary, I suppose really the key statements that you can see at the bottom of this are about having the right people in the right place at the right time, with the right equipment to deliver our services in the most appropriate way. So very briefly, just to cover the community risk profile, I've said already that we focus on three primary areas around dwelling fires, road and water. But our modelling allowed us to use some very good open data sources that were made available to us in that profiling exercise. It's given us a very complete picture, a detailed understanding of risk against those risk areas. We've been able to also be cognizant of other risks, so we also understand the national, regional, local risks that you would expect emergency services to be aware of. And that allowed us then to do a very detailed gap analysis of where we're currently at against that now newly informed understanding of risk. That gap analysis then paved the way to a series of proposals that I will talk you through in a moment. But it also allowed the Fire and Rescue Service to form and frame what we call our strategic intent statement. So I've put this on the screen again, just so that the public are aware of what it is that we're aiming to achieve through and under our risk and resource model. If people aren't aware, but the Commissioner herself has something called a Fire and Rescue Plan. And basically it's predicated on what are called CARE principles. CARE stands for caring for the vulnerable, ambitious collaboration, realise our potential and enhancing the experience that we have with the public. And that's basically what we aim to achieve by delivering our services under this risk and resource model. It's really important just to keep sight on those four service areas, those delivery strands of our business. And the emphasis going forward is to be around prevention and protection. That does not mean in any way that we'd compromise our response elements to the public where people need our services in terms of distress or harm through our response arrangements. But what we are saying is that we understand fully the benefits to ourselves and the public if we can get in early, intervene early and prevent people being in harm's way that require that response. So this resource model is helping us to realign our service resources to do what I've just said, remove, reduce or mitigate risk. And we will aim to do that in a very cost effective and efficient way using the principles of value for money. So I'll move on to the four areas that are under consultation currently.
Dave, sorry, could I just before you move on from there, so at the events, one of the questions we've had from the public when we've been talking them through the different areas of the risk analysis that you've done, obviously we've been mentioning that those are the three main areas of business for the fire service, but there are other things that the fire service does and other kind of critical incidents and work that the fire service does. And I know that wasn't going to be the main, but would you just very quickly summarize, apart from fires, road incidents and water incidents, the other kinds of things that the service might attend, just quickly for the benefit of the public, please?
Yeah, so what I said there in terms of fire, we're really focused on accidental dwelling fires because that's generally where we see most people becoming involved in fires that lead to death and serious injury. But of course, we attend a whole range of other fire incidents, from open and moorland fires, fires in waste recycling plants, fires in agricultural buildings or with agricultural machinery, fires in commercial premises, car fires, as well as what I might call nuisance or malicious fires, where people have deliberately set fire to things like bins and skips, etc. So a very wide range of things that we attend in terms of the fire fighting arena. In terms of what we call our special service calls, again, it's a very broad brush term. This is actually where we would fit our work in terms of response to do with road accidents and collisions. But of course, that can move out into much wider things. So we often attend dangerous structures. We'll attend things like animal rescue, where large and small animals have got themselves into difficulty. More complex rescue from height, where we've got to help people down from difficult and hard to reach access points like scaffolding or off cliffs. Obviously, we're talking about water, but that can include where we go to people trapped in fast flowing water, which we would then call swift water or technical water rescue. But also we've seen over the last couple of decades a real increase in the amount of severe and protracted flooding incidents that we attend, where people, for example, in York or Selby, have experienced very significant flooding events that have lasted for several days or weeks. I think it's fair to say, in answer to your question, that the fire service are often a port of call for many people who don't quite know where to turn. Our approach would be that we are there and always there to provide the support to the community, and we will do our level best to arrive at pace, make good quality decisions and deal with the incidents and support people who are basically requiring our assistance. So it's a very broad spectrum of things that we will attend. Some of them can, in the face of it, appear quite low level. So for example, we seem to remove a lot of people's rings from fingers, but for that person at that time that's got a problem with a ring that's stuck on their finger and it's causing discomfort, it's actually something that's a problem. So very simple example of where we can very quickly step in and do something just to help people in a very easy way. But North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service have a very, very sort of full repertoire and range of things that we will attend, and they range, as I've just tried to illustrate, from the very small to the very large.
And there's also a range of types of incident you attend in terms of assisting other emergency services as well, isn't there?
Yes, that's right. So again, we work very closely with lots of other partner agencies, but increasingly we're now seeing ourselves work with the ambulance service, particularly to gain entry for medical support, medical entry, or actually with North Yorkshire Police as well in that space. So yeah, it's something that we're monitoring very closely, because quite often the people that we are gaining entry for the ambulance to treat are basically the people that we see as being, in our eyes, the people who want to work within our prevention services. So that word vulnerable comes up again. So again, that very much like feeds into how we can use that access point to then do some further work with either that individual or people like that person, and provide an increased level of support through prevention and early intervention for them. Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, kind of quite neatly following on from what your question led me into at the end, Tom, based on our strategic intent statement, it is very much about wanting to improve our prevention and protection work. And I've given a very brief overview of what that means in the introduction to this presentation. Prevention is something that the fire service and North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service in particular have done for many, many years. And we recognise the real benefits of working in that early intervention space upstream of problems before they manifest itself, that requires more acute and response from the emergency side of our service. But we want to do more than that. We want to work much smarter, work alongside other partner organisations, look at how we can collaborate and work alongside delivering shared objectives to really make the best improvements we can for people in the community. So a real focus on improving. By improving, what we're looking here to increase our establishment of dedicated specialist prevention officers, so to grow our prevention and protection departments with people who will have the requisite skills, the knowledge, the understanding, the skills to help advise the community in that regard, but also to support the wider service in what we deliver in the prevention space. And with regards to protection, we as a fire service have benefited from some grant funding from the government as a result of the outcomes of the Grenfell Tower fire. We've used that money wisely to invest in our protection teams. We've grown, we've introduced new roles. We're looking to provide better support to our staff through things like training, and also we're looking to improve our risk information systems, which are really key to making sure we have a good, accurate understanding of premises within our service area. So we're really excited about the opportunity to really invest and grow and develop our prevention and protection teams and therefore our approach in this area of our business and service delivery. When we talk about the second proposal, this is to do with...
Sorry, Dave, can I just... Sorry, I'm just coming quick. Two questions on that one. Again, coming from the consultation events. Firstly, would it be possible just to very briefly allude to what your prevention and protection departments do in terms of daily activities?
So currently, the prevention team is really quite small. It includes uniformed officers who oversee the design and delivery of all of our prevention activities across the service. So it's really quite a coordinating role. They work in a directorate called Capability, so it's all about providing the right resources, the right amount of knowledge and support to the whole service to undertake prevention work. In that team, we also have our safeguarding officer who basically undertakes our statutory responsibilities for safeguarding, and that's both for children and for adults. But again, it is one person, and what we've seen over the last couple of years is a really increased understanding of what safeguarding is and how the fire service can identify people who are either at harm, self-abusing or in need of help, and looking to make either referrals through safeguarding or to provide wraparound support, even if it doesn't meet the threshold for a safeguarding referral. And then also in this team, we have our early intervention. So currently that's around working with young people. So that would include working with all young people through our schools programme and our key stage talks in schools and maybe colleges. We might even extend it out to working with students at the universities in York. It also includes our work with community safety partnerships and hubs. We make referrals for some of our programmes to help provide young people with the skills and the understanding about how to avoid getting into harm's way, make good quality decisions, develop their confidence, improve resilience. So we run things like the LIFE programme, which basically is a week-long course. We've got the first of this year's courses running currently in Skipton, which I believe is running extremely well. It includes our Fire Safe or Fire Setters programme, so where young people have got an interest in playing with fire, then we can do some very important work to work with that child or that young person and their families. And then, of course, it steps into our work with partners in a whole range of other areas. So we do connect in the community safety partnership place. We're again safeguarding boards. And we move into working with partners like North Yorkshire Police around organised crime, disruption, Monday slavery. So it's a very sort of broad area of work that we do. And because it's so broad, we don't want to just do a light touch. We want to make sure that we've got the right resources, that we can invest thoroughly and properly in the way that North Yorkshire Fire Service contributes in that prevention and early intervention world. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And then the second question, which you've essentially answered, but I want to make sure that I've asked it so that people can hear it. Basically, there's a question. Well, you've got people in that team. You've just kind of alluded to the fact that it's a very small team at the moment, but also all firefighters already do prevention and protection work. So why do you need more resources in these two departments?
Well, I go back to that statement I made about being really effective and efficient. So yes, all of our firefighting staff, they do undertake prevention work, but because of our response model, in other words, that they have to work as a team because they're a crew on a fire engine and they are bound by being limited to where they can actually travel and go to. and they are subject to the fact that they may be mobilised to response to incidents at any time, so that can be disruptive. They have other things that they need to do through the course of working day. So it's about making sure we've got really good, adequate provisions across the county through a dedicated resource. And what I'd like to say is this is not about standing still. This is a really aspirational move to make sure that North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service really look to improve and set ourselves up to deliver well in this space of prevention. So you will have seen, well, through the care plan itself that the Commissioner has produced, that's very much the focus is around prevention and early intervention. The national move in fire and rescue services is to do more of this sort of work, which we absolutely buy into because we understand so much the benefits of getting in there early. You know, if we can avoid people having to, you know, meet us with our full-on response teams when in harm's way, so you don't really want to meet us in a car accident. It's much better if we could have avoided that by helping people understand how to be safe on the roads, for example. And that really is the spirit of what we're saying here.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to automatic fire alarms. So as a fire and rescue service, on an annual basis, we recognise that we attend a lot of false alarms. It's approximately nearly 50% of our calls that we go to. When we've actually been and determined what it is, we would then classify it as a false alarm. And a significant proportion of those are actually due to automatic fire alarm systems in buildings. And it's important here just to emphasise that when we talk about automatic fire alarms, it's not just what you might find in commercial buildings. We also attend a lot of fire alarms in domestic and residential properties as well. It's something that we already have a series of policies and frameworks in service to try to reduce, and that, you know, what we're talking about here now is largely about working with those businesses that have fire alarm systems, about how we can actively work with them to reduce the number of activations that then lead to a call for the fire service. So this proposal is to take our existing policy, which says that we don't attend premises non-sleeping, and I emphasise the word non-sleeping premises between the hours of 0800 in the morning to 1800 in the evening. And what we're proposing here is that we will broaden out that width of time that we don't attend to those premises by an hour either side. So we're proposing that we will not attend between 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the evening. We're also going to remove the need that where we have what's called site-specific risk information, which basically is our way of understanding any risk to firefighters, that we will only attend any premises if we hold what we class as high and very high risk to firefighters. Currently, it is an overall generic approach if we have any risks, so there's a small movement there. We are also going to introduce the ability to charge for attending automatic fire alarms, and the emphasis here is on the ability to charge. We are going to introduce for our staff the need to not always drive on blue lights and sirens to an automatic fire alarm, and we are reviewing our response arrangements to what we send to draw us in line with other incident attendances. So, for example, currently, if we get a call for an animal rescue or a dangerous structure, the current mobilising would be that we would send an officer to assess the situation, and we're looking at the possibility of doing something similar for an automatic fire alarm. So that basically summarises the automatic fire alarm proposal.
Just a couple of questions in relation to this one as well, please, Dave. The first one around reassurance for the public. So some of the questions, especially in towns and the city, has been, well, what about flats above shops? What would be the situation if there was an automatic fire alarm in a shop where there were flats above it, please?
So I think in the first instance, there needs to be I will explain that there should be a very suitable level of separation between the commercial space, the shop, and the flats above. The two systems in those premises, if there is adequate fire separation, wouldn't be connected. there are arrangements in places where it is connected, because in places like Harrogate, for example, or maybe York, there might not be the ability to actually guarantee that you've got that adequate 1 hour fire separation. So in that instance, if there was a connection between the two premises, then that would then default into being a domestic or a residential premise. It's a sleeping property, so it wouldn't meet the criteria of this proposal. Equally, we have in our existing policy for attending the safeguards. So if we get repeat calls, so if it moves to what we call a 3-9s call, people phone up using the telephone, or if we get what are called double knocks, so more than one detector activates, it overrides that and we would mobilise resources to that property.
And can you just provide some reassurance about the fact that the service has information and information as to which premises are in the kind of category that you describe, where there might be, it might need to be classed as a domestic rather than a commercial?
Yes, I can, Tom. So our mobilising system in service is something called Vision, and Vision basically works or has within it something called a gazetteer. The gazetteer in Vision is taken from the national gazetteer, which is called Address-Based Premium, and it's updated on a 6-weekly basis. So every building that we have in the county, the service area, is listed within the gazetteer, and the programming within Vision will be able to identify that, so it understands, because it's coded to do with the purpose group, the property type, and indeed some other features of the building. So when we get the call in, for example, we'll be able to say this is a commercial premises, and therefore it moves into that place where I said we would then either not go, or if we've got a list of information that says we need to go, it's automated.
Thank you. And then the other question that comes up in relation to this: how will the service rather proactively seek to ensure that all commercial premises that would fall into this extra 2-hour window are aware of that, and that the fact that they would need to ring the service should there actually be a fire as a result of an automatic fire alarm?
So we obviously we've got your consultation period that's going on at the moment, which is available for everybody, including stakeholders and business, to understand what this proposal means. But we will be wanting to reach out and discuss with those groups that represent or connect with business. So, for example, chambers of trade and through local authorities, to make sure that they're aware of this proposal.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll move on to the third proposal. This is to do with one of our fire stations in the York area. We have a station at a place called Huntington, which is on the Ring Road to the north of the city area. When we did the risk profiling, as with most of our more urban areas, there is a full range of risk within it based on our understanding to do with dwelling fires. But we drew the conclusion from that the actual risk within the Huntington area is relatively low. We also did an analysis of the call profiles of Huntington over the last year, and we recognised that the amount of occasions where Huntington were actually called to incidents was quite small. And actually, when we broke down the incidents that they went to, again, quite significant of them were where we didn't actually need to do a great deal of active intervention. We also at Huntington currently have an on-call appliance. So it's currently got 2 fire engines. One is one of our on-call, which basically means that are staffed by people who have other jobs. They work in or they live close to Huntington or work close to Huntington Station. And upon receiving an alert on a page, they mobilise the station and deploy from that station. And that's very similar to a large number of our stations in the service area. So the proposal here is to remove the whole time appliance from Huntington and revert, and I say revert because Huntington originally was a whole time, an on-call station, back to being exactly that status. What that means is that we've looked wider at the response arrangements within the wider York area, and we understand through our modelling that the displacement of calls from Huntington to places like York and Acomb is a safe proposal, and therefore that's why it's included in this RRM. What we intend to do as part of a transition arrangement is to leave a small crew or group of whole-time firefighters or whole-time staff at Huntington Station. They will be responsible for making sure that much of the normal day-to-day activity that's delivered currently by Huntington, which includes prevention and protection, some more routine maintenance, and the logistical work on that station is maintained. And they will also be involved in supporting the on-call in terms of meeting any deficiencies currently until such time as Huntington becomes a fully crewed, fully established on-call station again. Once we get to that particular point and we're secure in our understanding that we have that fully established on-call appliance at Huntington, we will then look to displace those staff back to other areas and roles within the organisation. What we also want to make clear is that currently at Huntington there is an aerial ladder platform, so this provides us with the ability to fight fires from above and undertake rescues at height. The intention is to keep the aerial ladder platform in the York area, but there will be some further work to decide, is that the best location or could it be relocated to another station in that vicinity.
Just for clarification for the public there, Dave, will there be any redundancies as a result of this proposal?
No, we're not seeing any redundancies in this at all. The current staff who work at Huntington will be opportunities to relocate around the organisation into roles that are vacant. When I was talking about the P&P proposal, the prevention protection proposal, there is significant growth in terms of new roles, new jobs that are going to be created as part of that. And it also links into what we call our natural leaver profile. So we know as an organisation that there are people who are eligible to retire or could leave the service and transfer or move on to other places. So there are a number of mechanisms that we will look to work with our staff to offer them new opportunities to work elsewhere in the service.
Thank you.
And then the fourth proposal is around Harrogate and Scarborough. Now, I emphasise here that these two proposals were developed and modelled independently of each other, but the modelling led us to come up with the same proposal, which is why they're grouped together. So currently, at both Harrogate and Scarborough, we have what we class as a emergency rescue fire engine, and we also have what's called a tactical response fire engine. The emergency rescue fire engine has full capability. It can attend all incidents, in line with your question you asked me earlier about what sort of things can we go to. It forms part of our what's called a predetermined attendance to all incidents, and it's crewed with a minimum of 4 firefighters. Okay, the tactical response vehicle is generally, if not always, crewed with a lesser number of firefighters, with 3 staff. And as a result of that, it has more restricted or limited capability. What we are proposing at Harrogate and Scarborough is to remove the tactical response vehicle and replace it with a second emergency rescue fire engine, thereby improving the capability in Harrogate and Scarborough at the times when we know from our research where we have the highest demand. So our demand profile across the county, but certainly in Harrogate and Scarborough, shows that we attend more incidents through the hours in the daytime, generally speaking between 9 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock in the evening, than we do through the nighttime period. So we're going to improve and enhance the level of response capability in Harrogate and Scarborough when we know we have the highest demand, and then we will look to remove or step that second fire engine down on the evening. What it means in reality is a very similar position to what we already operate under, because the tactical response fire engine currently, because of its limited capability, doesn't form part of the predetermined attendance to a lot of incidents. So at Harrogate, for example, currently we will be bringing in resources from other fire stations, i.e. Knaresborough and wider, as part of that predetermined attendance. And it's also important, I think, at this point to emphasise that our resourcing model to incidents is very much based on what we expect to send at the outset. So I talked about our mobilising system that will send the initial response, but with all incidents, once we arrive, we have the ability to scale it up. So if the incident commander feels necessary, he will put in what's called assistance messages to request further support, which will come from the nearest and most available place. And that could be from a fire station, or if a fire engine is out and about doing other work, if they're close, they will get mobilised to that incident. Okay,
So one question that's come up a few times on this one. So obviously we can see from the profile there that the incidents that happen over night time are luckily much fewer, much less frequent. Two elements really. What's the likelihood of simultaneous incidents happening of a night time in the same area? And if two fire engines were required to attend one incident, and then you needed another fire engine to attend another incident at in the same area, how would the service manage that, please?
Yeah. Well, statistically speaking, and that's not my forte, but it's a 50-50 chance it could or it couldn't happen. But that's no different to how we operate currently. So our arrangements are based on the fact that you could have one incident occurring in a place at any time. But what we do, if I take Harrogate and Scarborough as cases in point, if they are out of their fire station or the station are committed to incidents for a period of up to half an hour, then we immediately backfill Harrogate, Scarborough and York stations, and indeed Skipton, with another appliance. So we move resources into those towns almost immediately once we know they're committed. And then that happens in a slightly different way for other stations. So, for example, in Ripon, it will be if there's no resource in there for up to an hour, we bring resources in. So we have a dynamic model of moving resources around the county once we've got fire engines in effect committed to incidents, to make sure that we use what's available to actually make sure we maintain the cover. It can happen that we do get incidents taking place at the same time. Certainly within, if the question's around, do you get two fires in Harrogate at the same time? Well, it can happen and has happened, but that's how we go about managing that situation, that we bring more resources in to make sure we preserve that ability.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm just going to very lightly touch on these next three. Now, these aren't proposals that are out there for consultation. They're more there really just to make the public aware of some things we want to look at internally. But we are looking to use this opportunity under the risk resource model to improve our water rescue capability in Craven by introducing a new swift water team at Skipton. We are going to be introducing what are called response principles. So we currently don't have a response standard, but we were very keen to make sure we can demonstrate to the public how we respond. So this is based on three things, which is strength, speed and safety. So the weight of the type, what we said in terms of resource and staff and the type of vehicle, that's the strength part. The speed part is obviously every part of the process of receiving calls, mobilising, turn-in times, turn-out times and getting to the incident. And safety is basically the application of what we call our drive to arrive policy. So making sure that our drivers and our crews attend as quickly and as safely as possible to the incidents they're going to. And then the third one is for us to look and work with our staff about introducing new, more flexible duty systems across the organisation to realise benefits in a more modern duty system for all. And at that point, Tom, I have the pleasure of handing over to yourself, actually.
Thanks, Dave. Yes, so I'm just going to quickly take the meeting through where we're up to with the consultation so far. The consultation launched the last week of May. So we're now 7 weeks in. So far it's been going very, very well. I'm pleased to report. We've had just under 500 responses to the consultation so far. So we are encouraging everybody to take part in that, to visit tellcommissionerzoe.co.uk to look at the proposals, as Dave mentioned earlier, and to respond to the survey that can be accessed via that link as well. To take part and tell Commissioner Zoe what everyone thinks of the proposals and whether they think that they are a good idea or not. The results of that survey will then be factored in as part of Zoe's decision making following the consultation when the final proposals are brought forward by the service. So we've been holding a number of consultation events so far. Yesterday we were in Selby talking to the public there. Very hot day, which was pleasant in some ways, but not so much in others. And it was good to be able to speak to people there. In terms of what we've got coming up, I will just run through the remaining consultation events for everybody's information. And again, all the details of where we will be and when are available through the website. But next week, next Friday, the 1st of July, we are in Skipton. Then on the 8th of July, on the Friday, we are back in Huntington, outside the post office, to talk to people there again. Next Saturday, the 9th of July, we are in Malton. On Saturday, the 16th of July, we are in Richmond. Tuesday, the 19th, we are back in Harrogate for the second time. 20th of July, it's Wednesday, we're in Northallerton. And then on Friday, the 29th of July, we are back in Scarborough for the second time as well. So lots of opportunities there for people to come down, to talk to us about the proposals. There will be members of the fire service there, as well as staff from the Office of the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. And there is a short video and further information available at those events for people to watch and to engage with, and obviously to ask us questions about the proposals, so that they can provide an informed opinion of what is happening as part of these proposals. And then at the end of the consultation closes on Sunday, the 14th of August. There will be a full consultation report as a result of that, and the service will then propose a set of final proposals for the Commissioner to make her decision on at Executive Board in September, at the end of September, after which there will be a formal announcement of what has been agreed. There we go. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Tom. And just to confirm, so it's tellcommissionerzoe.co.uk in terms of the drafts. Lovely. Thank you very much. So that's everything on our amended agenda item 4 in terms of the thematic presentation and questions. We haven't had any further questions in from the public, so we'll move into agenda item 5, which is the fire performance update and questions. And I think I'm handing over to James for this section.
That's right. Thank you. So as we've said, I'm going to take you through this month's performance pack, and that is a report in between February and April of this year. We're going to start with our incident overview. First of all, the top two bar charts that you'll see there are a breakdown of our monthly performance from February to April, and then below that is the years compared against the last 2 years. What I'd really like to draw your attention to is the bottom left-hand section of the diagram. If you'll notice in the orange section, we have an increase in special service calls, and that can be attributed to 3 main things really. First of all is the inclement weather that we experienced in February. Secondly is the people returning to our road networks following COVID and lockdown in the previous years. And then thirdly, as already mentioned, is that increase in assisting our partners in the ambulance service with medical emergencies and gaining entry. You'll also notice in the dark blue on the same chart there, we are actually slightly down with the number of fires overall that we are experiencing. And those 2 points I'd like us to keep in mind as we move to the next slide, if I could. So this breaks down in more detail our top 10 incident types. So again, on the left-hand side, you'll see a breakdown of the last 3 months. And on the right, it's again a comparison against the previous 2 years. On that right-hand chart, you'll see that against the RTC scene safety, again, that's a reflection of that increase of road use, and also assisting ambulance gain entry. Again, you'll see that clear step and increase as we go forward. Just looking to the left-hand chart, just again to echo the points already made, and dangerous structures. Again, we saw a large peak in February. That was due to the inclement weather, and again in our flooded incidents. And then finally, if we move on to our fires in the open, again, is a steady increase, which again can be aligned to a seasonal trend that we see most years, where as the weather begins to get better, we start to see more fires out in the open. Just
James,
in relation,
sorry, just on the small fires in the open there. What are the main causes of those fires in general? You talk about inclement weather. The better weather. So what are the causes of the small fires in the open, and what work is the service doing to try and prevent those?
Yes. Okay, so the trends that we've identified after you break that down is targeted in some part towards the York area, and that is not unique to one particular area of York. That is quite evenly spread from the centre of York down to Selby, and an increase in fires in woodland caused by deliberate fires by youths. So what we've already begun doing is increasing our youth engagement in those areas, along with police colleagues and PCSOs, to obviously educate and be more present in these areas to deter that type of activity. The other thing to mention here is there were actually 2 instances in the east of the county which started as small fires in the open, but actually escalated to larger fires, and they were alongside the railway. And what we've identified is a change in procedures in some of the railway activities, and that has not directly as a result caused those fires, but as a prevention measure, we are working closely with them to learn more about how they can help prevent those fires due to sparks from the track. So again, something that we are working closely with partners to help reduce. The other activities that we undertake at this time of year, which again a natural spread across the county really of these types of incidents, is barbecue safety. People again enjoying the good weather, but disposing of their barbecues maybe irresponsibly in some cases. The other thing is wildfires. Again, we are working with landowners to educate them and also the public who use open spaces regarding the disposal of either cigarettes or barbecues, or indeed people managing their land by purposely setting fires that are later getting out of control. Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yes, thank you very much.
James, can I just come in there as well? I'm just thinking about some of the things you mentioned there around youth diversionary work. It's important for the public to know and understand that we've got some services that we focus commissioning on in relation to our force colleagues, but those services are also available to voluntary referrals in from partners like the fire service and other community safety partners. So I'm thinking particularly of our change direction service in terms of youth diversion. So if there were young people who the fire service were coming to the attention of the fire service and other partners who might benefit from diversionary activities through change direction, it's important that we make sure we've got those appropriate referral processes in place.
Thank you. Okay, if we're comfortable to move on to our false alarms. So this, again, on the left-hand side, shows the breakdown of the last 3 months, and then a comparator to last year on the right-hand side. And what really this is showing us is that our demand is relatively static, that we are maintaining that sort of level and trying to continue to reduce that demand. And what I can say is in the last couple of months, we have introduced a 4-stage process, which is an enhancement to our previous arrangements, which is increasing the level of engagement that, first of all, crews have when they arrive at these incidents. So they're using a form to gather greater detail around the causes of these types of incidents, as well as engaging with those responsible people on site to help put prevention measures in place to prevent a reoccurrence. That's then followed by a secondary step, which is again further engagement, a more formal letter with further materials to help support prevention measures. Thirdly, we start to engage our business fire safety team, if it gets to that point, to have a visit and to have a more specialist area of expertise look at the problem. And then fourthly, a final position of enforcement action where it falls short of the regulatory reform fire safety order. In addition to that, obviously, we've already discussed today the proposals within the RRM, and again, something that we would like to take forward to, again, which we would see help reduce that demand as we move forward.
James, can I just ask quickly that do you have any information about kind of repeat false alarms from automatic fire alarms on this front?
So I don't have that available today. But what I would like to say is to highlight, I suppose, and make aware the public of the issue itself, if you like, of repeat calls. First of all, we have premises in some cases where they have hundreds of detectors in premises, and therefore a proportionate approach is required where we have repeat calls. So, when we compare that to a premises, a shop, for example, that may only have 5 detectors against a hospital who may have many hundred, absolutely, we've got to make sure that when we're reporting that is a very clear and proportionate sort of approach that we are taking. So what I'll do is I'll take that away, look at how we could perhaps better present that in the future. But certainly for today, we do have repeat calls. Locally, we are monitoring those and taking action, but I can't really go beyond that today.
Thank you.
So moving on, again, this breaks down then the false alarms. If you look at the top pie chart, that looks at the type of false alarms that we've got. So the light blue explains that we have false alarm apparatus. So that is when we're called out to systems that are not performing correctly. So all that work that we've talked about a minute ago is going to help us drive that demand down and get to a solution to reducing those types of calls. The dark blue there is the times that we're called out under good intent, if you like. So people have identified what they believe to be a fire. In some cases, this may be steam. When we've arrived, it turns out that it wasn't a fire. So again, quite comfortable with those and would rather the public dial those in if they believe there's a fire occurring. And finally, the smallest proportion, which I again like to highlight from last month, is a reduction, is the malicious calls that we receive. So this is when people maliciously call the fire and rescue service, knowing that there is not an emergency, and obviously diverting our time and resource away from where it may be needed elsewhere. The bottom pie chart talks about the types of premises that we attend, and as you'll see, there is a split there between residential, non-residential, and other residential. So what that is the blue sections are more around your offices, shops, those types of premises. The orange section is more about your homes of multiple occupation, maybe hotels, and then the smaller part is domestic dwellings, so where people live in their homes. And what we do is we have a number of areas of prevention in each of those cases. So our safe and well and home fire safety checks with people in their own homes, of course, and also in some of the other domestic settings, such as homes of multiple occupation. And in the commercial setting, we've already talked about how we're driving down those or aiming to drive down those calls through that engagement with responsible people on site. Moving on then to our availability, and first of all, I have to acknowledge that there is a small decrease again this month, and what I can say after looking into this is this can be attributed to the holiday season. So we have schools that have been off, and also a number of bank holidays, and our staff, obviously the same as everybody else, would like to take a holiday after the lockdown periods of the last 2 years. However, what I can say is that we continue to work in that areas to increase that resilience. The On-Call Futures programme, which includes procuring an electronic system to allow our staff to easily book on and off duty using a smart device, increasing their experience and improving that experience through the other types of work that they may do. So Dave's already talked about prevention activities again, so we're looking to now move more into that space with our on-call staff, and that diversifies the motivation for staff, both the existing and for potential recruits in the future, and the type of work that they undertake, again, could be another incentive both to stay with us and to work with us in the future. Moving on to our protection activity then. So this is our business fire safety work that we do, which is against the regulatory reform fire safety order. And what I'd like to draw attention to is the 4 smaller charts on the right hand side, and the dark blue areas, which are our operational staff conducting this type of work. So they do this alongside their other activities, and what you can see is an increase across the board, month on month, in this type of work, which again just shows that how that is being prioritised alongside other activities. The light blue area is our specialist staff. Again, you can see a small drop off in activity this month, and that can be linked again to some of the holiday period. As Dave already talked about earlier on, we have a relatively small prevention and protection department, and increasing that will help us increase that resilience and iron out the peaks and troughs with some of that activity. But again, I would expect to see that return to its normal levels next month. Finally then, onto our prevention activity. So you'll notice on the campaign group on the second chart in, which has both orange, dark and light blue in it, the top 3 areas of activity that we are conducting is home safety, road safety and that youth work. And if you'll notice how that links back to our demand earlier in the presentation. Again, so those deliberate fires and the youth engagement, the road safety, the increase in the way our roads have been used again after lockdown, and there's a real correlation there. And again, obviously water safety thereafter. Home safety again is absolutely a priority for us, and what I can say is on that left hand chart, the safe and well figures are again really healthy, which is something that we want to continue with.
James, can I just ask, what's the difference between home safety and safe and well nowadays, please?
Yeah, of course. So safe and well is always our preferred method of engagement with homeowners. So safe and well is something that we do in people's homes, and it is not just confined to fire. So we would obviously go through a number of questions and assessment against fire dangers in the home, if you like, in prevention measures, but it also is a method of getting a message across for partners and the prevention measures in relation to societal measures, if you like. So slips, trips and falls, for example, there are questions around that, which again, if we know that if somebody has a slip or a trip, that then first of all they were likely to be hospitalised if they're elderly. They would later come out of hospital, obviously after a large cost to public service and also to harm to the individual, but also likely to be immobile when they return to their own home, which increases the vulnerability of that person both to crime and to fire. Hence why that is our preferred method, and it's that broader piece. So what home safety check is very much around fire. So in many cases, it's about we put up smoke detection. An example of that may be if somebody has had may have had a small fire, for example, on the hob left on the cooker, and we've observed that there's no detection in the property, and we've requested that to put those up on the homeowners under the homeowner's permission. What we may have asked is, are you willing to answer some other questions? But on those occasions that they've declined for whatever reason. And that is why the two are separated out. So just to be very clear, home fire safety is very much focused on fire safety in the home. Safe and well is fire safety plus a number of other wider social factors.
Thanks.
No problem. And that concludes the presentation today, unless anybody's got any further questions.
Thank you, James. Much appreciated. Right, there haven't been any further questions from the public in relation to the performance update, but I know there is probably something else that Tom, did you want to come back in on and ask of either Jodie or Dave? Still on mute, Tom.
Apologies. Yes, I can probably help to answer some of it as well. So the question that's come in is around the consultation. So when the consultation has been completed and any changes have been made, will these changes be evaluated to ensure they have had the expected effect? Will you need to consult again before making any further changes? JD, Dave, if we can come to you first in terms of what will the service be doing in terms of taking on board the outcome of the consultation and looking at what the final proposals that are put to the Commissioner will be, please?
Okay, thanks, Tom. Please excuse my voice while I answer this question. As soon as we receive the feedback from the consultation, this will then direct what the service needs to do to put the proposals to the Commissioner. Now, along with any changes to the service, of course, this will include an implementation plan. That implementation plan will also have evaluation, measuring and monitoring attached into that plan. And that has a number of layers within the organisation, internally and externally. Now, internally, productivity targets will be linked into certain areas that we intend to increase when we talk around prevention and protection, as an example. So we measure and monitor those monthly within service delivery meetings in service, where the Deputy Chief holds the service and its group managers to account for their delivery and mechanism of delivery to make sure it's, as Dave has discussed, value for money that we're providing, but also making sure that we are targeting our work in the areas that we strategically wish to have the greatest outcome. Service delivery reports into our tactical leadership board, where if there are any issues or concerns or areas for change to make sure that value for money is still being delivered is then discussed and challenged. And then ultimately this goes into our strategic leadership team. Where necessary, if there are significant changes or anything that we need to discuss, it is lifted into the exec board, which is then chaired by the Commissioner, and the Commissioner holds myself and other members of the senior strategic leadership team to account within that area. Of course, everything we do is within the public interest, or that is the aim, to add value to the public in the service that we're providing. And this, the PAM, is another area where we will openly discuss and have a transparent process around the services that we're providing in there. From another external scrutiny perspective, the service is held to account by Her Majesty's Inspectorate. We have recently been inspected, and we will be and continue to be annually. And they hold us to account for the current and future position that the service is taking, Where required, you can be issued plans to help improve the service, or you are graded upon your approach, and that is an ongoing and continual basis. So yes, there will be evaluation linked into there. That is led throughout the organisation, and the public can be assured where changes are required, the actions will be taken and on a transparent basis made available within the PAM forum. Thank you.
Thanks, JD. Then Jenny, just on the kind of latter part of that question, in terms of requirements to consult again on any changes that are made. So there isn't a direct need. If it's a modification of the current proposal, there isn't a need to go back out to the public to consult on that, because it is taken as a result, a change as a result of the consultation based on the feedback. If it is a significant and substantive change, i.e. essentially a whole new proposal, then yes, we would have to come back out to the public to consult on that. But if it is within the scope of what has already been consulted on, then no, there isn't any further requirement.
Thank you. So that takes us to the end of questions from the public, but just a reminder for myself chairing the meeting, so have your say in relation to the fire service. To tell commissionerzoe.co.uk is the site, and the survey closes on the 14th of August. Right, I'll move on to the final couple of agenda items. So agenda item 9, have we got any other business that we wish to address in the meeting today? We haven't got anything tabled. No, I'll take that as a no. And that takes us just finally to the date of the next meeting, which is Friday, the 22nd of June. No, it will be July. It says June on my paper, but it will be July, won't it? 2022. So it just leaves for me to thank the members of the public who have tuned in today to watch live, and those who will watch on catch up. And just a quick reminder again, please do take the opportunity to tell Commissioner Zoe at tellcommissionerzoe.co.uk, and the survey closes on the 14th of August. So thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you hopefully on Friday the 22nd of July for the next meeting. Thank you everybody.